For Road Trail Run here, we're going to take a look at New Balance's two 2021 performance trainers. On the right, the 1080 V11, $150, releases in February. And on the left, the 880 V11, which is $130 and releases in March. So we're going to compare their features and changes from the prior versions here on the deck. And then I'm going to take them both out for runs, and I'll be comparing to the 1080 V10 on the run. So they're both shoes with Fresh Foam X midsoles. The 1080 has a full Fresh Foam X midsole, whereas our 880 has a layer, the darker color, of kind of a softer material. They both weigh about the same. Actually, the 880 loses about half an ounce over its predecessor to come in about a bit more than a tenth of an ounce more than the 1080. So it comes in at 9.7 ounces in a US 9, about 275 grams, whereas our 1080 comes in at 9.55 ounces, 271 grams. So the 1080 has more stack height at 30-22 and more of a rocker profile than our 880, which is a bit more flexible, although the 1080 does have some flex and more flex than the predecessor. So our 880 comes in at 28.18, a 10 millimeter drop versus a 8 millimeter drop here. Now what you'll notice is you do have more forefoot cushioning in the 1080 than the 880, because you do have 4 millimeters more stack there. Although the 880 is kind of softer feeling, more flexible and agile. So it's a bit more of a traditional kind of feeling running shoe than the 1080, which relies on rocker plus some flexibility. Now, they are not big updates from the predecessor. Both get changes to the upper. So our 1080 still has the hypo knit upper, and it has the molded rear collar, which, and we're going to also have in the video here some from the run impressions. You can see the Achilles elf thing is flared out a bit more than before. It's a bit softer and more flexible. In our full multi-tester review, which is linked here, a couple of our testers noted that it was shallower and put some pressure on the rear. I didn't experience that, but that's something to take note of. Now our 880 gets a brand new upper. It's no longer the hypo knit, it's an engineered jacquard mesh. It's soft, pliable, and what I especially like is they really give you good support here. There's no booty. You can see that it's soft, but plenty supportive. You get a really good lockdown. Whereas over here, to save weight with the extra stack, the hypo knit is kind of rigid, the actual hypo knit, whereas the rear is kind of more flexible. So it's not quite the lockdown you get over in our 880. Now a few changes, other changes in the 880. There's a clip here, plastic clip, and I'll show you a picture of the older one. It came up much higher. It's lower, and that probably has also helped reduce the weight quite a bit here. Now, in terms of the ride, expect a flexible, agile ride here. This is kind of a more, I think, a little bit faster, easier shoe to run all paces than the 1080, which is a bit harder to run slow for me. I will say that both shoes in my side-by-side testing are softer, just a little bit softer than their predecessors. And that's particularly welcome in the 880, which was really only knock beyond the hypo knit upper I didn't care much for. It was kind of rigid. It was a bit firmer than I like, but it's not a big change. And neither is the change in the 1080. Now in terms of the outsoles, they have a almost full coverage outsoles, similar pattern. You have bigger lozenges in the 1080. They should be plenty durable and long lasting. So these are shoes that are really designed for daily training. They can handle a variety of paces. My personal preference is the 880. I like the flexibility, the somewhat lower stack, and even the 10 millimeter drop versus over here where you rely more on the rocker. Now it is more flexible than its predecessor. You can see it flexes, but it's not as flexible as our 880. In terms of the fit, they're both true to size for me, no question about it. I would say the last is pretty similar. The new hypo knit here is a little bit different. It's a little softer, although the rear areas are still much denser. They're very, very similar. I kind of prefer this engineered jacquard mesh here, and especially because they don't even require a bootie to lock down the foot really, really well. So you can also, so just after right now, I'm going to give you from the run impressions on both, and actually I'll have a comparison as I went A-B with the 1080. And we also have full multi-tester reviews of both. So these are two great options from New Balance for your daily training, running pretty much all distances. I would say the 1080 is maybe a bit better longer run shoe because of that extra 4 millimeters of stack. The 880 is more maybe a bit shorter in orientation, although I prefer its agile, kind of snappy ride. So they're both really good options. Next part of the video, we're going to take them out on the road and give you our impressions directly from the road. First up is the 880 and then the 1080. Let's talk a bit about the ride here of our Fresh Foam 880 V11. First, and especially compared to New Balance's other daily trainer, the 1080 V11, we have a very flexible shoe here. It is not a rocker-based kind of shoe. The Fresh Foam X is bouncier, I think, a little softer than V10. So, and the clip here, this clip, sometimes these clips are way overdone. It holds the foot really well, and certainly better than the sort of more minimal setup in the 1080, which is really more designed to save weight, because we do have a less stack here and a heavier shoe. So what you feel here is full contact from the rubber, the flexibility, so you have a nice stable forefoot. It's super lively, plenty of cushion at the heel. So this is kind of a traditional daily trainer, but completely updated. The upper, I think, is a little less scratchy than the V10. It's very comfortable. Maybe a touch short at my true size, but I wouldn't change a thing on that. The hold in the rear is good. The tongue moderately padded. There's no bootie in here. So it's just really a refined and perfected classic daily trainer. Let's talk about the comparison between the 1080 V10 and the V11. I took them both out, one on each foot, for a run through Newcastle, New Hampshire. Okay, everybody, we're in beautiful Newcastle, New Hampshire. Across the way is the state of Maine, and that's the Piscataqua River. And there's a really cool lighthouse over at Fort Constitution there, a very historic site. At the heel, the Achilles hold collar, is they've relaxed the fit and moved it back a bit. It leans a bit further back. Let me show you a picture of how that looks off the foot. Note that while it's moved back at the top, it appears to have moved forward a couple millimeters maybe lower down in the cup, which caused some problems for two of our testers, although I didn't have any. In terms of the toe box, they've reduced, it looks like to me, the density of the mesh over the toes. It feels about the same firmness, but the bumper is not as high here. It's a little lower, doesn't quite go as far in. So that improves something I didn't particularly care for in the 10. It kind of a little pressure over the toes, given this is a knit upper. You can also see the tongues are a little thinner on the 12. It's a little firmer material, a little firmer. Lockdown's a little better. So overall, subtle improvements. I think the midfoot hold is slightly improved. Not that it was bad over here. Now let's talk a bit about the ride. Okay, at barely 9.5 ounces, this is a lot of shoe with a lot of cushioning. As with the 10, it's a somewhat firmer ride, but what is pretty clear is that New Balance has softened something here. It feels like the Fresh Foam X is softer, or maybe the patterning of the laser holes is a bit different. Don't see anything too obvious, but one on each foot. It definitely feels softer, front to back really, but not significantly so. So you if you like the 10, you like this one, I think, a little better. It's still very responsive. I'm also finding this 11 seems to transition a little better, a little quicker, less of kind of a flat feel that I feel over here. Not sure where that's coming from, but it's pretty clear. And overall, I think this is a very nice improvement. You can think of this as a plentiful daily trainer for just about anything you could imagine. Very nice, decently lightweight for all the cushion, responsive ride, plenty of cushioning. Thank you very much for watching. You can find multi-test reviews of both shoes at RoadTrailRun.com and also linked here. And we hope you'll consider subscribing to our channel. Happy New Year!